Once upon a time, a beautiful woman named Awele moved to a village with her brother, Tobe. On their first day there, some villagers watched as she walked around, looking for a hut to rent for the two of them. A few kind villagers stepped in to help, and soon they settled into a cozy hut near the stream. As soon as they were settled, Awele quickly began searching for a job to support their home. Before long, she found work as a harvester on a large farm. Every morning, she went to work, tilled the soil, earned her pay, and returned home to her brother. One day, while Awele was working, she grew tired and decided to take a sip of water from her gourd. Without realizing it, she accidentally tipped it over, spilling all the water onto the ground. Oh, she groaned, stomping her feet like a child. Where am I supposed to get more water? She complained loudly. She stood there for a moment before deciding to quickly head to the market to buy more. But as she turned, she noticed a man standing behind her. Could you please cover for me? Just stand here. My name is Awile, in case anyone asks, she blurted out quickly. Without waiting for his reply, she ran off and, as promised, she soon returned with a refilled gourd. You're still here? She playfully asked him, as if she had not asked him to wait. Thank you so much. I really wish the farm owner would provide water for the workers. Anyway, you can go back to your spot now, she said, walking away. Unknown to her, the man was the farm owner. Slowly, he began to walk away, but he was taken aback by her chatter and carefree attitude. However, he could not shake off her words. He realized she had a point. Providing water for the workers was necessary. That very day, he instructed his servants to ensure the laborers had enough water starting the next day. The next day, Awele was astonished to see the change on the farm. There was now drinking water available for the workers. She could not believe it, as she had only suggested it the day before. The farm owner, who was a kind man, was eager to hear what the laborers thought about the improvement and was open to any other ideas that could make their work easier. And he knew exactly who to ask. So just before the end of the day, he went looking for Awele, who was preparing to leave to her home. As soon as she saw him, her face lit up and she began talking excitedly. Look at this. Drinking water on the farm? If only it happened yesterday, I wouldn't have interrupted you. It's like magic. By the way, I've worked here for months but only saw you yesterday. What's your name? The man chuckled, amused that she finally paused long enough for him to respond. My name is Lotana. You can call me Lota, he said with a smile. Awele kept talking, not realizing that Lota had not told her what his job on the farm was. Lota just kept listening, sometimes asking what she thought could be improved on the farm. Awele said, well, it would be great if we had a shaded place for the workers to rest, and if we could leave by 6 p.m. It's not safe to work at night. Lota nodded in agreement and decided it was a good idea. As usual, he told his staff to start building a shade for the workers the next day. Awele did not come to work for the next 2 days because it was her time off. When she came back, she was shocked to see that a shade had been built on the farm. For someone who usually talked a lot, she was speechless. She realized her talks with Lota had led to the changes, so she searched the farm to find him. Is he the farm supervisor? She wondered. Unfortunately, she could not find him, so she started her work. But at 5:45 p.m., she noticed the other workers packing up their tools. Where are you going? She asked a woman. You probably did not hear because you were away, but we now leave at 6 p.m., the woman replied. Now, Awele was sure she had influenced the new policies. Determined to find Luther, she looked for him again and finally spotted him talking with a group of workers. As she headed toward him, another worker stopped her. You can't go there. The master is having a meeting with some workers, he said. Who is the master? Awele asked. Master Lotana, the worker replied, sounding irritated. Please leave. Lota noticed what was happening, excused himself from the meeting, and walked over to Awele. Did you, am I mean, are you behind all the changes on the farm? She asked, stumbling over her words. Lota nodded and laughed. I never thought I'll hear you stammer. Wait for me a bit. I'll finish the meeting soon. Awele felt nervous, worried that she might have said too much during their earlier conversations. About half an hour later, Lota returned and offered to walk her home since it was late and she had waited for him. Awele wanted to refuse, but feared she might have upset him, so she agreed. They walked together, and Lota offered to carry her tools to help her. You've worked all day. Let me carry this, he said kindly, and she obliged him. Unable to stay quiet any longer, Awele asked, You own the farm, don't you? Why did you not tell me? And you let me order you around. Lota laughed and told her he wasn't upset. He even thanked her for her suggestions. Then he formally introduced himself, and the tension slowly eased. Awele, a natural chatterbox, started talking, and Lota found himself laughing often. They were so caught up in their conversation that they did not realize how loud they were when they reached Awele's home. Awele! Tobe called out loudly. Lota looked and saw a man sitting under a shed. Awele quickly ran to him while Lota followed behind, confused. Why are you out here alone? I told Ene to wait until I come back, Awele said. Tobe explained that Ene, who she had hired to take care of him, left about 30 minutes ago. I asked him to leave me out here, Tobe said. Then he looked at Lota, prompting Awele to introduce him. Lota, this is my brother, Tobe interrupted. Lota politely greeted him, and Awele explained that Lota owned the farm she worked at. She then walked Lota out of the compound, but just before saying goodbye, he asked, What happened to him? How long has he been like this? Awele took a deep breath and said, He has been paralyzed from the neck down for almost 5 years. Lota saw how hard it was for her to talk about it, so he expressed his sympathy and started to leave. I'll see you at the farm tomorrow, he said as he walked away. Once Awele was sure Lota had left, she ran back to Toby and looked at him seriously. Brother, she asked, why did you say you were my brother when you're actually my husband? Toby smiled and said, You hesitated to call me your husband, so I just made it easier for you. Besides, we agreed that you'd call me your brother in this village. Awele scoffed. I never agreed to that. It was all your idea. Let's go inside. I'll make you something tasty and tell you all about my day, she said, as she began to carefully move his chair. But in her heart, she felt worried for Toby. What more could she do to show she was committed to staying by his side forever? The next day, Awele returned to work and went about her tasks as usual. When it was time for the workers to take their break, Lota walked over and casually sat down next to her. Awele stared at him in disbelief and said, I do not think this is a good idea. The workers will think I'm getting special treatment from you. Lota smiled and leaned in a little closer. Are you sure they do not think I'm the one getting special treatment from you? They both laughed, and Awele offered him some of her food, but he politely declined. No, thank you. Actually, I came over to invite you and your brother to a small gathering I'm hosting. Awele appreciated that he included Toby in the invitation, but felt the need to ask. This isn't pity for Toby, is it? He does not like when people do that. Lota's expression softened. No, Awele, it's not about pity, he replied gently. I just want to get to know both of you better. Tobe is important to you, and I thought it would be nice to have you both as my guests, not as your employer, but as a friend. Awele, sensing his sincerity, replied, That's thoughtful, but we can't come. Toby might feel uncomfortable being around so many people. Lota looked disappointed, but nodded in understanding. Awele noticed the change in his mood and tried to cheer him up. And if you really wanted us to come, maybe you shouldn't have refused when I offered you some of my food. Lota chuckled. It does look good, but I can smell locust beans, and I don't eat anything with locust beans in it. Awele laughed and said that Toby did not eat meals with locust beans either. They continued chatting, and when her break ended, Lota left so she could get back to work. Over the following days, he often joined her for lunch. They talked about many things, and each time he left as her break ended, Awele realized Tobe had been right. She was hesitant to tell Lota that Tobe was her husband because there was something brewing between them. It was not defined, but she was not willing to let it go. Lota often visited Awele's home, not just because he was starting to have feelings for her, but also to spend time with Tobe. He wanted to show Awele that he genuinely cared about her brother's well-being too. The two men enjoyed hanging out with each other. They would play drafts together, with Tobe telling Lota what moves to make. They talked about Lota's plans for his many farms around the village, but Lota was also curious about Tobe and admired how he stayed cheerful despite his situation. I'm sorry to ask, but how did this happen? Lota asked one day. Tobe paused for a moment and then replied, I climbed a tall tree to get some fruits for someone I cared about. I stepped on a weak branch by accident, and when I tried to regain my balance, I fell hard to the ground. Lota listened closely and asked again, hoping to lighten the mood. Was it for a woman? He asked, and Tobe nodded. Where is she now? He asked further. But Tobe did not want to say much more, so he simply said, Let's just say things got complicated after that. It was quiet for a while. Then Lota finally said, I'm in love with your sister and would like to marry her. You are her only relative, so I wanted to inform you of my plans. The news hit Tobe like a heavy blow. Even though he had seen it coming, he thought he would be more prepared. Trying to change the subject, he asked Lota to make another move on the draft board. Lota understood and let the silence hang. Before he left though, Tobe said to Lota, I support you, but the final decision rests with Awele. If she agrees, you will have my full backing. Lota thanked him with a smile and headed out, contemplating the best way to express his feelings to Awele. The following week, Awele and Lota were taking a walk together when Lota suddenly slowed down. Awele noticed and looked at him with concern. Are you okay? She asked. He nodded and then said, You make me so happy, and I love how completely at ease I feel around you. I'm in love with you. What I'm trying to say is, I want to marry you. Awele's heart started beating fast. She knew there were feelings between them, but she also knew she could not let herself act on them. I need to go, Lota. I'm sorry I can't, she said, before turning and running away. When she got home, Tobe noticed that she looked worried. He asked her repeatedly what was wrong, but she insisted she was fine. Sensing it was about Lota, he asked, Did Lota ask you to marry him? Awele froze, surprised at how he knew. She stayed silent, but her expression gave her away. It's okay, Awele. He's a good man. I think you should marry him, Tobe said. But Lota, you are my husband, Awele replied, her voice shaking. Tobe smiled. Our relationship is complicated, and you clearly love him. Did you even realize you just called me Lota? Awele blushed. She knew he was right. She loved Lota and wanted to marry him. So in her heart, she decided she would say yes to Lota, but she had some conditions. The next day though, Awele avoided Lota. Despite this, Lota was still kind to her. She only spoke to him when she absolutely had to, and this went on for about 2 weeks. Finally, when she had made up her mind, she walked up to him. I will marry you, Lota, she said, but I have some conditions. Lota was overjoyed and asked her what they were. I want a very small wedding, Awele said, and my brother Tobechuku has to move in with us. Lota, who was wealthy and had many wealthy friends, was ready to give up the idea of a big wedding, but a second condition touched him deeply. What kind of person do you think I am, Awele? Of course, Tobe will live with us. We'll take care of him together, Lota said. Awele smiled, and they hugged, sealing their love and agreement. Time passed, and the wedding was over. Awele moved into her new home with Tobe, and they settled in quite well. However, Lota was very clingy with his wife. He demonstrated a public display of affection whenever he was around her, but he realized she would move away when they were around Tobe. When Awele tried to talk him against it, he argued that Tobe was an adult and probably did not mind, but he was wrong because Tobe was beginning to get upset. He even began to randomly give her the silent treatment. One day, Awele went to see Tobe to inquire about his mood swings. You have changed since we moved in here. Does it have something to do with Lota? She asked. Tobe looked at her sadly. Even if. Does that change anything? He answered. He took a deep breath and continued. I miss the days when we were husband and wife. Now it feels like I'm an outsider. I asked you for years to pay my bride price, but you would not. I was ready to be with you for the rest of my life, Awele said, sounding frustrated. Awele, do not misunderstand me. I'm happy you are married to Lota because I cannot make you happy. The day he told me he wanted to marry you, I cried that night, but I was unable to clean my tears. That's how useless I am to you. Unknown to them, Lota had been listening at the door. When he walked in, his face made it clear that he had overheard everything. He had come to spend time with Tobe, but was stopped in his tracks by what he heard. Lota asked what was going on, but neither of them spoke. Realizing he would not get any answers, Lota turned around and left the house, heading for the farm. When he arrived in the evening, he saw Awele in their living room. Next to her were her bags she had packed. Are we going somewhere? He asked as he examined the bags. Awele knew she married a nice man, but she did not understand how he remained nice in that situation. I'm sorry, Lota. I lied, but I did not want to leave without explaining myself to you. Lota sat down to listen. I am on your side, Awele. All you need to do is tell me the truth. Awele broke down in tears at Lota's comforting words and began to recount how she had known Toby since her parents passed away. After losing her parents, Awele went to live with a cruel auntie who happened to be neighbors with Toby's family. Whenever her auntie was particularly harsh, Awele would find herself in tears. One day, a boy slightly older than her came and sat beside her, offering comfort. That boy was Tobe. From then on, Tobe would meet her at the back of the house each day. Sometimes he would bring her food, small gifts, or simply sit and talk with her. They built a bond that grew stronger over the years. As we grew older, Tobe told me he loved me and wanted to marry me. And of course, I said yes, she told Lota. However, their love was met with strong opposition. Tobe's parents, who were wealthy, disapproved of their relationship, especially because they had an ideal wife for him. Despite this, Awele and Tobe continued to hold on to the hope that his parents would eventually change their minds. One day, they met secretly, and on their way back, they passed by Toby's father's farm. Toby noticed that the mangoes were ripe, so he decided to climb the tree and pick some for her. They had no idea that his father would appear unexpectedly. His father angrily sent Awele away and ordered Toby to calm down. Lota, I'm not sure exactly what happened as Toby was climbing down, but he fell hard to the ground, and that was it. Awele explained how everything went downhill from there. Toby was paralyzed as a result of the fall, and his parents blamed her, insisting that she take responsibility for him, since in their eyes, she had ruined his life. I've taken care of Toby ever since. His parents never accepted him back, so although he never paid my bride price, I have lived with him as my husband. Awele explained to Lota. She described how she worked countless menial jobs, and at Tobe's request, they moved out of their village to the one where she eventually met Lota. I love you deeply, Lota, but I can't abandon Tobe, she said softly. He took care of me for the most part of my life. Lota shook his head gently, his expression filled with compassion. Awele, I will never ask you to abandon him. Besides, if you can do this for Tobe, it means I am in safe hands. Lota stood up and quietly started bringing her bags back inside. He knew she had lied, but at that moment, he saw her loyalty and compassion in a new light. If she could show such deep commitment to Tobe, even after everything, then Lota knew she would bring the same strength and devotion into their life together. As he carried the last bag, Lota turned to Awele with a soft smile and said, let's start over. We will take care of Tobe together. Thank you for listening to this story. Today I want to ask you a few questions. Do you think Lota made the right decision by asking Awele to not leave the marriage? What do you think is the best solution for this situation? If you enjoyed this story, please like and share with your loved ones. Until next time, take care and goodbye.